Welcome to Rewilding Love. This season is with a couple on the brink of divorce.
This is episode number 22, an interview with Michael Neill.
I didn't realize that it was a therapy session and that I was going to be the one doing the therapy, but okay.
We were both trying to navigate our inner state of insecurity and thinking that somehow we could take care of that by making our partner different.
I've learned about these universal principles, honey, so I'm going to be less of a jerk now.
I feel like you're hogging the mic. I guess
Everybody's living in their own little bubble.
I put myself on this thin ice.
There is the equivalent of gravity in the human dimension.
Hopefully we won't have killed each other by the end of this podcast.
What if we can get back to what brought us together in the first place?
I think that is part of the conditioning, that we're on the alert for disappointment. We look for where we might get hurt. We look for what could be a problem.
Half the people give themselves a lot of grief and about half the people give their partner a lot of grief.
And this is the game of life. Let's enjoy it as much as possible.
I've had that moment with Nina where you just kind of go, oh, wait, I get to be with you.
You are listening to Rewilding Love with me, Angus Ross.
And me, Rohini Ross.
Rewilding Love is a podcast about relationships.
We believe that love never disappears completely in relationships. It can always be rewilded.
Listen in as we speak with our guests about how they share the understanding behind the rewilding metaphor in their work.
And how it has helped them in their relationships.
Relax and enjoy the show. So you're in for a treat with this episode number 23 with Michael Neill.
It's episode 22. I knew you weren't good with numbers.
Well, you're still in for a treat, and it is, in fact, episode number 22.
That's why I usually say the episode numbers at the beginning of each episode.
Yeah, because you're much better with math than I am.
I don't know that that's math.
Anything with numbers is math to me.
I agree that you're in for a treat with this episode with Michael Neill. Michael Neill is an internationally renowned author, speaker, and thought leader who challenges the cultural mythology that stress and struggle are a prerequisite for creativity and success. He has numerous best-selling books, and we're really grateful to have him on the show. What was interesting when I was listening to him share is when he was saying that he wasn't sure if his relationship was as amazing as it is with Nina, just out of plain luck.
Yeah, I guess that kind of took me by surprise, but I know what he means.
Well, I think what's different is that he hasn't really struggled in the area of a relationship the way we have struggled in the area of relationship. And so we know that it's not luck that we have the relationship that we have, because our luck was not good luck.
Yeah.
But that because he hasn't struggled perhaps in that way, he's perhaps not seeing the wisdom that's there that allows it to be the way that it is.
Yeah, and I guess that he probably hasn't had to, well, I don't know. I don't like to call it work, but I guess there were years where we did have to work very hard on our relationship. And he hasn't had to perhaps go to those lengths.
Well, I think it wasn't so much that we had to work on our relationship, is that the way that we were relating to each other was just so painful that it felt like work.
And it looked like work because you were sort of hell-bent on finding the latest technique du jour to put our marriage back together. And there was always something to do on that front.
Well, I was doing the best I could at the time.
Well, I know that now. You were definitely doing the best you could. I just wasn't very aware back then in the way that I am now.
I think we're much more kind and compassionate with each other now, thank goodness.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And so in terms of this episode with Michael, the pearls of wisdom that he's sharing that are just very natural to him in relationship can sound a lot like common sense in terms of the importance of wanting the relationship to work, the importance of being kind to each other, the importance of allowing room for differences in opinion and allowing space for each other. These are all things that I think we would all agree, yeah, all of those things are what makes relationships much easier. But I think what's behind them or underneath them, the foundation for them, is that they come naturally from a place of security. And what was really difficult in our relationship when we were really struggling is that we were both trying to navigate our inner state of insecurity and thinking that somehow we could take care of that by making our partner different so that we wouldn't have to feel so unstable within ourselves.
Yeah. And then we're just projecting all of that insecurity on each other. It's your fault and vice versa.
And so the reason that I don't want to send the message that good relationships are based on luck is, well, one, because I don't think it's true in the sense that if it was just based on luck, we probably just would have thrown our relationship away. But two, if people are struggling in relationship, I don't want them to think that they're just unlucky and that they're either stuck with a bad relationship or just need to end the relationship because they're unlucky in that way. But that if somebody really wants to be in a relationship and it's difficult, that there are opportunities to see how to find that inner stability within ourselves, to find that place of peace and balance within. And then we naturally show up for the relationship in ways that enhance it and bring out the best in our partner and bring out the best in ourselves.
Yeah, well said. And I guess if it was down to luck, it would be a case of, well, let's spin again.
That's right. And if I had kept spinning, I would have just ended up repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, because there's plenty of me's out there.
All right, let's hear from Michael. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We're so grateful to have you.
You are very welcome.
Angus and I recorded a couples intensive, and they allowed us to turn it into a podcast, taking excerpts from the intensive. And they came to us, with divorce papers ready to go. And we took them on the journey. And since we don't know if people have listened to the whole series or not, I won't tell you exactly how it turns out. But that's the premise of the podcast, supporting them and navigating that, whether they stay together or not, seeing how the understanding supports them. And
it's like one of those murder mysteries.
That was the intent all along.
You were the person who is really responsible for Angus and I working together, because you introduced me to the understanding of Sydney Banks and got me looking in this direction and really excited about it. And I had to rope Angus in along the way.
You did.
Well, it seems to have worked out based on how closely you're sitting. So,
well, I thought I would share what I think is a funny story. You might not. I don't know. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't, Michael.
Okay, carry on.
And it might be an opportunity for me to make amends to you as well. So when Rohini first met you, or when she was first working with you, you invited her to dinner and very graciously said, you can bring your husband along. So I came to dinner at your house. I didn't know anything about you. I hadn't met you. And we had a really wonderful time. And towards the end of the evening, you made overtures to the fact that, maybe you should go and play a game of golf. You invited me to have a game of golf. And I said, well, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I can't remember exactly how the conversation unfolded. And then I even remember Nina saying as we left, she's like, you should go and play golf with Michael. And then we were walking down the driveway back to our car, and Rohini says, so you're going to play golf with Michael? And I said, well, I don't know. And she's like, I don't know. It's like, people give their eye teeth to play golf with Michael Neill. I'm putting it in my own words, right?
Only because I'm an easy win, but yes.
No. So I we had a wonderful evening. I thought you were a really nice guy. And I thought, well, maybe I better play golf with Michael Neill. It's like, he's obviously a really important person. So this is where it's funny, is that I felt, right, I can't just go and play a game of golf. I'm going to have a practice round. I'm going to have to find some friends to go and play with just to see where my game is at this point. So I persuaded a couple of friends to go to the golf course. I think it's up near Balboa, that golf course up there.
There's 3 of them up there, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know. It's probably not the fancy one.
Yeah, no, they're equally not fancy.
Oh, okay. So we went and played golf. and I was just so despicably bad. It's kind of like, even the first hole, what was funny, because the first hole, my friend said to me, because I basically missed the ball about 20 times to get to the first hole. And then he said to me, when I got the putter out, he says, you do realize those golf clubs are probably for someone half your size. And these were golf clubs that I'd found in Beverly Hills that someone had thrown out, probably some kid or woman, I don't know. Anyway, we were going to play 18. I think I gave up after 7 holes because it was just a horror story. But anyway, suffice to say, that's why
we've never played.
I was basically doing you a favor so that you weren't subjected to the horror.
I like the way the story ended, because I was thinking, oh shit, did I not call him back? Did I not, like, what did I do wrong? But no, this is much better.
It was incumbent upon me, so it's like, that was why. You'd completely forgotten as soon as I walked out the door. I don't know, but I'm like, oh, I really wish I had that opportunity to play golf with the great Michael Neill. It never came off, but thankfully so, to be honest.
I'm glad you got to clear your conscience.
I feel so relieved that I got that off my chest.
God, I didn't realize that it was a therapy session and that I was going to be the one doing the therapy, but okay, I'm in.
Well, Michael, we know that you really help people wake up to the genius that they have inside of them and to step into their potential and to see possibilities that they might not have seen. And we work in the area of relationship. And so we're wondering, do you see what helps people to wake up to their potential also help them in the area of relationship?
It kind of can't not. When somebody starts to see how they really work and how everybody really works, beyond the differences, beyond the Mars and Venus stuff, beyond that, it can't not affect how you do anything. And so in relationship, if anything, it amplifies it, because there's 2 humans now. So when I have a better understanding of what's going on with humans, it's not just I'm understanding myself more and able to work with myself more gracefully, but it does tend to map out. It doesn't mean everything's, oh, I've learned about these universal principles, honey, so I'm going to be less of a jerk now. I mean, maybe, but there's a few more variables.
Absolutely. And so in terms of, we do work in the same area in terms of that understanding of looking at how we work as human beings and looking at what's universal. But how would you speak to that in this moment? And I know it can change, from day to day, moment to moment, but what do you think is important for people to know about what's universal?
Well, for me, the first thing that was probably important to know was that there were things that were universal. I mean, I really did think it was 100% idiosyncratic. Like everybody's living in their own little thought bubble and never the twain shall meet, but somehow we managed to not kill each other a lot. And so it was a bit of a shock to me to realize, and I think the first insight I had into it was that subjectivity was an objective fact. So I was thinking, well, no, it's all subjective universes. And then I went, oh, wait, but that's universal. So starting to see that there are principles behind how we work, that there is the equivalent of gravity in the human dimension. I think that's huge, because now there's not a lot more important than that. Like if I can see that there are actually things that will be as true for my kids as they are for me, for my partners they are for me, for complete strangers as there are for me, that's really valuable to see more about. And then once you do, you start to see there's a kind of a simplicity to it. And that's nice, because generally speaking, relationships are breathtakingly complex, right? It's like, well, because of my upbringing and their upbringing and this thing that happened that we'll never get past. And this, and so another thing that I just think helps settle people is to realize this might not be 30 years of therapy worth of trouble, right? This might not be, well, if I'm willing to put in the years, I can make it less shitty, to kind of see, oh, wait, what if it were simpler than that? What if we can get back to what brought us together in the first place and let that be the basis for our ongoing relationship, almost like a reset, but not a sort of a willpower reset. Okay, I will pretend I don't hate you and you pretend you don't hate me, and let's see how it goes. Right? Like an actual reset.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful scene in the movie, I think it was called Once, the one that there was that big song, Falling Slowly, about the two musicians who were in love. And there's this wonderful...
Is it an Irish movie?
Yes.
I don't know. I can't think of what it
we
is.
watched
He's
it.
Irish,
Okay.
he's Czech or something like that.
Okay.
And where he sees this girl across the room and he's just taken by her. And then he realizes it's his girlfriend. Like, and I've had that moment with Nina, and where you just kind of go, oh wait, I get to be with you, and that, to be able to find that again, it's kind of amazing. Like when you hear about how relationships are supposed to go. I remember working with a client. He was a kind of a music star. And he was in his 40s, and he decided that maybe he should think about settling down. He'd been exactly what you'd expect somebody in that job to be like. And so I said, okay, great. So tell me about your perfect relationship. And he couldn't even go there. And I said, okay, so imagine it's a year from now and you've met somebody and it is amazing. Tell me about it. He said, well, we don't fight all the time. And we still have sex sometimes. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best you can imagine. I'm not shocked you haven't gone here. But I think that's almost to protect ourselves. That's the expectation that a lot of us sit in relationship with. And it's disastrous because, you're just looking for trouble, literally.
But I love that point in terms of looking for trouble, because that's so often, I feel like you're hogging the mic.
I was just trying to you made me so paranoid about not picking up my voice. So I was trying to get close to the mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, Angus and Rohini will be back in a moment. We just need to take a minute to sort a few things out, and they'll be back to give you more great advice about how you too can have a wonderful relationship. Come back after the break.
Hopefully we won't have killed each other by the end of this podcast, right?
Well, it would be awkward.
What you said about how we go looking for trouble, I think that happens so often in relationship. And I think that is part of the conditioning, that we're on the alert for disappointment. We look for where we might get hurt. We look for what could be a problem, and we try to be proactive about that. And innocently, in trying to make things work, we end up only looking at what doesn't work, and that really gets us into trouble.
Yeah, I think we habituate ourselves towards that trouble. We create a narrative around trouble, and then we just continue to play it on a loop, maybe, after a while, if we look in that direction.
And the dead giveaway is, I knew it.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, you did, because you created it. Like, you were waiting for it, and it's like, ha. And what was probably like a blip in somebody else in your partner's day turns into proof that all relationships with you are fundamentally doomed.
Yeah.
And we just, the speed with which we go from a bad conversation to a hopeless relationship is extraordinary.
Yeah. I know. That feeling was like, wow, I put myself on this thin ice. No one else but me.
Well, either way, actually, about half the people give themselves a lot of grief, and about half the people give their partner a lot of grief. Right? And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure there are two of you, but two of you does include you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So has there been an insight that you've had that's been particularly helpful to you in your relationship?
Do you know, it is really funny because I am often very hesitant to talk about relationships because I've kind of only had one, which I get is meant to be like this idol in the cultural thing. But in another way, I don't have a lot of experience. I've been with Nina for 32 years. I mean, that's kind of it. I remember when we met, we had a conversation about ones and twos, and it was not toilet humor based, but that we kind of could see that there's two levels of connection in a relationship. There's the inner connection, which is what we all crave and love, which we called the one. Like, if there's got to be the one. But then the two, which is, how do our lives fit together? How do our values fit together? How do what I would now call how do the fruit of our thinking jibe? It is also relevant. It's not fundamental, but it is relevant. And so we kind of, I remember us having a couple conversations. We were just kind of marveled at the fact that, you know, we were ones who also had twos. Like we fit on multiple levels. Now, that's not to say that, you know, she still doesn't like football and movies about things that blow up, and I still think Real Housewives is crap. But fundamentally, we're good. Like, whatever. And so that was kind of a cool thing to see. I think a second thing that was really just so helpful to see was that the worst advice I now can see that I think couples are ever given, and I totally came into my relationship with this, is never go to bed upset with your partner. Which means you have the most important conversations in your relationship when you're tired and mad at each other. Like, that's just bad design. Right? I don't care who you are. That is a terrible idea. Now, I didn't know that, but I started to see it. And then I started to see it outside of my relationship as well. And then I think maybe the most surprising one that has made the biggest difference in what I thought was already a great relationship, but has made it that much better, was something George Pransky, I know has worked with all of us, said in the relationship handbook, when he said the purpose of a relationship is to enjoy each other's company. And I remember reading that and rereading it and going back and checking that I'd read it right. Because I had been told so many times, you come together for learning and growth, right? The purpose of well, you just come together to raise children and then the rest you sort of figure out. And it was one of those things that was so stupid true. It was like, how did I not get that?
Right.
But then when that becomes real and you go, well, hell, I'm with you to enjoy your company. So a lot of the things that I would bring up that are very important are not going to help me enjoy your company, but some are. So it's neither a ignore everything nor a talk about everything. You just kind of see, you know what? There are some things that are worth reconciling, and there are a bunch of things that never need to be reconciled.
I love the idea of having enjoyment being the North Star in a relationship and in all aspects, I guess, of this work that we do. I often use the metaphor of life being kind of like being like this glorious computer game where there are challenges where we get to grow and learn. And it can get you can get hung up, I feel. And I feel like I have focused on that in the past, that it's all growth and learning. But the caveat should always be is like, if this is a game, this is the game of life, let's enjoy it as much as possible. That should be probably the main motive, to play this game. I love seeing it on those terms.
Yeah, and I used to teach it in some of our success seminars about when people have goals, there's always an unspoken second half of the goal. And to me, the only second half of any goal statement should be as a part of my wonderful life.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, do I want to make this work? Yes, as a part of my wonderful life. Right? And if it's not as a part of my wonderful life, then who cares?
I think it really takes the pressure off in terms of, I know for me, that statement, I would have almost felt guilt around just enjoying my life. Like, there must be more to this.
Right.
There's work to be done here. What are we doing? And to see that as just thought, as belief, as conditioning, not true, and that there's something much deeper unfolding that does have the feeling of happiness, contentment, and joy, and that it's not, that statement isn't really just about sort of personal comfort and satisfaction. It's really aligned with what is universal and impersonal, who we are. And so seeing how that lined up for me was a real relief, because I thought I had to work to get there. I had to improve myself to get there. And instead it's like, no, enjoying your life, as simple as that sounds, is aligning with the simplicity of just what's unfolding naturally.
You know, this is a slightly sideways story because it's about when we had our first baby. But we had to be in a relationship to have the baby, I guess. So it still counts. It's still about relationships. But no, it is fundamental to this, I think. So I had grown up not really wanting kids, but I knew when Nina and I got together, we were going to have kids. It was just how long could I put her off? And then she got pregnant and I wasn't particularly looking forward to it. I mean, I got it. I accepted it. I was okay with it, but I wasn't looking forward to it. Because all I thought about when you talk babies was vomit and sleeplessness. And I already did sleepless vomiting. I didn't need another reason. Like, I mean, not professionally, mind. But when Oliver was born, they handed him to me. And I fell so deeply in love in less than 30 seconds. And I suddenly went, oh, I've been watching the movie with the wrong soundtrack. Mm. Like I had seen the realities of having a child, which are messy and involve sleeplessness and money and things that didn't sound attractive to me. But I didn't realize that the soundtrack was so fun that you didn't care. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. There's two. There's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is obviously a classic. But the other one, there's another horror movie about a tire. I think it's just called Tire! And literally it's this renegade tire that chases. And it's so stupid, except that the music actually makes it seem like this tire or this tomato are scary and threatening. Well, it's like that in reverse. So we have these ideas about relationships. We have this soundtrack to the difficult bits, that we are going to bump heads, that we aren't going to agree about everything, that we are going to have different ideas, that we are going to change over time. All of that is actually true. But if the soundtrack of love, and this sounds so hokey now that I'm saying it out loud, but if you get the feeling right, none of that matters. It is all dealable with. If you don't have the soundtrack, you can have some pretty nice things going on, and it's miserable.
We have some questions that we'd love to ask you, and they're just kind of like improv questions and kind of a trip down memory lane related to your relationship. Are you open to playing along?
I'm open to you asking them.
Yes, well, you can decline.
Let's see what happens.
It's a good answer.
That is. You can decline any of them. What's one of the fondest memories in your relationship?
Well, the first one that came to mind, there are many. I remember when she turned down the aisle at our wedding. And it was all I could do to not burst out laughing, because I just was so overwhelmed with love and the thought that she was much shorter in flats than I expected her to be. But it was something about the kind of juxtaposition of, I wasn't expecting it. Like, it wasn't like we had been kept apart we had been kept apart for 24 hours, but there was something about that was felt like such a good portent. My mother-in-law said, "You looked like the cat who got the cream." And I remember that. And so that was that. I mean, there's obviously many, but that was the first one that came to mind.
That's lovely.
That's brilliant. What is one of the funniest memories in your relationship?
Well, okay. This one is slightly weird because it is completely about our relationship, but actually wasn't between us. So when Nina, so we were living in London, and during pregnancy, there are a lot of foods you're not meant to eat because they're potentially dangerous for the baby. And so when Oliver was born, I went to a place we really like, Rosslyn Hill Deli. I don't know. We got married at Rosslyn Hill church, and there was just an amazing deli nearby, and so I went in and I said, what are the foods that pregnant women can't have that are dangerous? And I'll say, I'll have one of each. And it didn't occur to me that she would think that I was trying to kill my wife. And so there's this horrible, awful conflict in the deli. And I had to explain, oh, no, we had the baby. This is a treat. There was that.
That's hilarious. Brilliant. I love that. I love that.
So I'd love to see in their face.
The next one is, what is a difficult time that you've had in your relationship and what helped you to get through it?
I always want to answer questions like that with what helped us get through it. And I get this isn't a helpful answer, but it is the answer. I picked really well, right? I am with somebody who wants it to work. So there's a sort of and I want it to work. So there's a built-in goodwill component. Like we're inclined to figure it out. I don't know, I can't speak for her, but I haven't questioned being in the relationship since maybe the first year, which was 32 years ago. Now, I've questioned a lot of choices we've made. And, life happens. We had times with the kids that were difficult. We had times with health challenges that were difficult. We had times with money that were difficult. So we have a life too. But it never felt to me like one of the options was let's just not be together. So that's the way I've come to understand commitment, as a meaningful phrase and not as a duty. Because I hate the idea of commitment. And especially when we got married, it was like, just don't make me say it's forever. Like I kind of knew it would be. Like I know me, I'm a tame animal, right? Like I'm just, but I couldn't stand the thought of that. But actually what I've now come to see is what commitment is just means that when the going gets tough, we're not going anywhere. Like our question is, how do we make this work? Not should we, shouldn't we? And that takes so much off your plate and that takes so much off your mind. Now, and I also think that's one of those ones where it takes one to tango. I don't think you both necessarily have to think that, but you do. Or you're just setting yourself up for a world of worry and doubt.
I think that's a really helpful answer because I know for myself, when I stopped questioning whether I wanted to be in the relationship or not, and of course, when I would get into low moods and things would look really difficult, when I added, do I want to be in the relationship? Of course, the answer was no in that moment. But when that came off the table, you're right, there was so much more space opened up to actually figuring out how to navigate whatever the difficult challenge was. And I didn't realize what a toll that was taking on our relationship. And when we work with couples, one of the things that usually is present when they come and work with us and do an intensive is that they both want it to work. They just don't know how to make it work. And when that's how they come to us, we feel very confident that we can support them because they want to make it work. They might not have a clue. They might feel hopeless about it, but just that desire and wanting is such a game changer.
Yeah. And I don't know if this makes sense, but it's a non-neurotic desire. It's not I've got to make this work or I'm a failure. It's no, I actually want to make this work. This is the best thing I've got in my life. And that doesn't, I'm getting a little teary. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be challenges. That doesn't mean it's all going to be smooth sailing. That doesn't mean there might not be times where, man, it'd be easier being on my own. What it means is I've never taken those thoughts seriously for a minute.
It's beautiful.
It's like in the work that we do working with couples, if only we had a goodwill plugin that we could install in their operating system. And in a sense, I guess that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
To reacquaint themselves with that, their innate natural state on that level.
No, I think that's nice because I think that's right. I mean, it's not the words that I was using, but it speaks to it. Is if the goodwill is intact, I don't think there's a problem. And by the way, that might still mean you don't stay together. I don't know that I believe that every couple should stay together. But the difference between breaking up with goodwill and breaking up without it is really big. So I don't think there's a version of relationship where goodwill isn't critical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will always say that we're not attached to the outcome, but we are hoping that each person gets more connected with that natural state of love inside of themselves and makes decisions from that place.
I remember reading something years and years long. I mean, Nina and I were probably together because we've always been together, but really early, before I thought about stuff like this, that talked about that if you're leaving a relationship because you're unhappy, you're going to create the same relationship with the next person. If you're leaving a relationship from a place of just clarity with still love and good feeling, you're going to be fine. I mean, there is a sort of an inner guide. And one of the, I don't talk about relationships much, but when I do, one of the things I notice is people feel embarrassed to admit they divorced or they split up with somebody, and it's like, no, that's not, you don't get bonus points for being in a crappy relationship longer. What you get, if you can get back to the love and the good feeling and the goodwill, is such a gorgeous foundation for life. But there's no shame on it. It's like one of the reasons I probably don't go scream relationships from the rooftop, because I don't know how much of what I've got is luck. I just don't. I mean, I don't care either. Like, if it's luck, I'm all in, right? But I remember we went for our 29th anniversary, we went to Vegas, back when one could do something like that. And I remember, people would find out it was our anniversary and they go, "Oh, what's your secret? What's your secret?" And separately, because we talked about it later, Nina and I both basically said the same thing. I think she quoted Dr. Laura, but she said, "Choose wisely, treat kindly." And I said something like, "Find the right person and be kind." So we separately had the same answer, which is, yeah, it's not, I can love anybody, but I can't be in a relationship with anybody. So there is a choose wisely part, but the treat kindly just goes across the board.
Well, you say you don't often talk about relationship. I mean, I would say you were probably the standard bearer to talk about relationship from all that you shared thus far. And anyway, and I would encourage you not to get into the relationship field, because we'd be in trouble.
You're golden. I would, but my wife won't let me. So we're
okay. Thanks to Nina. So anyway, next question. How do you divide domestic labor in your relationship?
Well, we're kind of bizarrely old-fashioned in that sense. So it's interesting. When we got together, we both worked, and Nina made more money than I did. I was an actor, for God's sake. And she had a real job. And so when we had babies, right, and the dynamic changed, it just became apparent. I remember, you remember that opening scene from Four Weddings and a Funeral, where they wake up late and Hugh Grant is just going around the room going, fuck, fuckity, fuck, right? That was Nina in the morning going to work. And I just one morning went, yeah, this isn't right. And I said, look, let's just give it a go. Let's see if I can bring in enough money that you don't need to work, and let's do it. And her memory may differ, but we didn't talk about it again for years. And then I just remember one night we were having dinner, and it seemed to me to come out of nowhere, but maybe she'd been thinking about it for a while. And she said, "Is this okay?" And I said, "What?" And this is so un-PC, but she said, "You being the man and me being the woman." And I said, "Actually, I kind of love it." And so we have that kind of a split. I go out and hunt buffalo, and she prepares the meat, right? Like, she wanted that. Nina has, for 30 plus years, made a home. And it's an amazing home. I mean, you guys have visited the home. It's like, it's been in many different houses, but it's always been a home. Now, I am sure she would love it if I did more around the house, right? Don't get me wrong. And I don't do nothing. I mean, I do my best. But I'll flip the story as well. Early on, and I don't know if she knows this, like, I've told the story, but I don't know if I've ever told it to her. So, okay, here goes. There was a time we moved to America, and I basically was having to reset my career. So I didn't really have an acting career over here. I'd had one back there. And my coaching was built around trainings that I did over there, which I wasn't doing over here. So I was scrambling financially. We were coming up on, we either had just had Clara or were getting ready to. And Nina asked, hey, I really need more help around the house. And I don't come off well in this story.
Thanks for your bravery.
I had read in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People a story where Stephen Covey said when he was a professor, he went to the head of the school and said, I need you to come in and sort this problem out. And the guy showed him his calendar and said, okay, here's what I do. Which of these things would you like me to abandon so that I can help you with your problem? And Stephen Covey was duly chastened and went and sorted his own problem out. Muggins here thinks, what a great idea. I'm going to write down everything I do and show her and say, which of these things I do for our family? Well, it was horrible because when I really broke it down, I probably spent 1 or 2 hours a day at that point doing stuff for our family and about 10 hours a day worrying about it. And so I never obviously shared the results of my focus group, but I did start helping out more around the house. So I don't want to suggest it's completely one-sided, but it cuts both ways.
Well, at least you had the wisdom to look before you said that. That's important.
No, I'm grateful, or I might be one of the before pictures for you.
That's right.
So when we do the bio at the end, we can now say it's like Michael Neill, international coach and trainer extraordinaire, aka Buffalo Hunter.
One does what one can.
How are finances handled in your relationship?
Reasonably well. It became obvious to me early, like in the first 3 years we were together, that most of the financial headbutting was over stuff that actually didn't particularly matter. It was like Nina liked clothes and I liked books. And trust me, when I say I like books, I spent as much on books as she did on clothes. I really liked books. And so we just decided, okay, let's have 3 accounts. A joint account, which is all the household expenses. But then at the beginning of every month, and we've done this since I think we were married in 1990. So at the beginning of every month, we pay ourselves a salary into our own accounts. So I have no interest in what she uses her money for. She has no interest. Well, I don't know if she does, but she doesn't bug me about what I spend my money on. And then there's the joint money. And it's just enough. Like, it's not extravagant. We've done this when we were making almost no money, through times where we've made a lot of money. And it's just, we know we get a salary at the beginning of each month for us, and that's our money, and we do whatever we want with it. And, sometimes I take chunks of mine and take her out to dinner. But I do that because I want to. And that's always worked really well. The big stuff, we go through together, and that works variably. Sometimes it's very smooth. Sometimes we just have different priorities at different times. But again, it's always in context. When the only times it's problematic are when we lose context and it starts seeming like a more important than the goodwill.
Yeah. That's key.
And yeah, I think of that as bog standard normal. Like, I don't give us crap about that. It's like, yeah, you know what?
I never heard that expression.
Oh, really?
No.
Sounds very English. I think you should have heard of it.
I should. I've obviously lived here too long now. I was just thinking, good job I have such a prominent forehead, because we certainly did a lot of head butting, I think, early on.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question. So what was the biggest misunderstanding you woke up from in your relationship?
I don't know if this is the real answer, because honestly, I'm not quite processing the question. I don't think like that. But the thing that came to mind immediately when you said it is, I think I thought we had to agree with each other more. Like, I think I thought it was important that we thought the same about stuff. And I've come to see that there are very few places where that's important. Not that it's not important at all. It matters around the kids. It matters around general life direction stuff. But the details couldn't matter less to my mind. And I can see how if it looked like the details mattered, it would be really hard to make a relationship work.
Getting caught up in the weeds.
The devil is in the details.
Yeah, but I think in this instance particularly, that's true. And I think I just sort of thought that's how it should be. And when it became obvious it wasn't that way, that looked problematic to me for a little while until it didn't, until it looked like, well, but hang on, so what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's huge.
Yeah. So what's one of your favorite things that Nina does for you?
You know, she has always been breathtakingly supportive of me having hobbies. Like I always hear about, you know, wives telling their husbands, "Oh, you're off to go bowling with the boys instead of being home with me." And she's always been the opposite. I suppose I could take that personally, but she really
Get him out of the house.
Yeah, hang on a second. Interview's over. I need to go sort out my marriage. But I feel so loved and understood when she encourages me to go out and play golf, encourages me to spend money on stuff that's really just for me. Now, you know, she doesn't do it foolishly. I mean, obviously it's within the context of the larger relationship, but I think I just have always felt so guilty about doing things for me. And the fact that she has not just never given me shit about it, but goes the other way and actively supports me in it, I don't know that anything makes me feel more loved.
It's lovely.
So heartwarming.
It is. Well, what is the least favorite thing that Nina does?
Your heart's warm enough, buddy.
It's good cop, bad cop, right?
The least favorite thing. You know what? Nah.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Nah.
Well, I think because the next one was if you have any deal breakers, and I think that's a no too in relationship because you sound pretty committed.
Well, how do you keep physical intimacy alive in your relationship?
We've always made time for each other. Like even when we had little kids, we had date night. You know, it might not have been very ambitious, but there was never a time where we were like, we'll spend time together later. Right. I mean, obviously any given day, but it's always been a priority that we hang. And one of the things that was so helpful to see, and I don't know if this is true in every relationship, but this is certainly true in ours. The more we're together, the better we get on. The less we're together, the more we butt heads. So when I traveled a lot, the first week back would often be problematic. And one day I just realized that, oh, this isn't a real problem finally coming to light. This is a function of when we don't spend time together, it takes us a little while to reconnect. So knowing that, it's obvious that we need. So we've had tea time since we were together. Like 4 o'clock, pretty much every day we have tea if I'm in the same country. Sometimes it's just a cup of tea. Sometimes it's tea and Scrabble, you know, sometimes it's tea and a chat. But so even if I've been full on busy at work all day, we have tea and we'll make a point of having dinner together and we'll make a point of, you know, so I think that's probably it. Even though that isn't about physical intimacy, that's the foundation for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if we don't do that, then it's hit and miss. Like, you know, but we do that, so it's not.
And the big question here, Darjeeling or Earl Grey?
Do you know what? We're just English breakfast, PG tips.
PG tips, of course.
Yeah.
Couldn't be anything else.
No, I mean, somebody
Best tea in the world, right?
dropped off some Yukon Gold, and it wasn't awful, but it wasn't PG tips.
You're a renegade having your matcha tea.
I know. That would be considered far too exotic. Back home now.
The last question is, if you could only say one thing to Nina, what would you like to say?
Love you more.
That's brilliant.
Thank you so much, Michael, for playing along with us. The answers are really touching, and I think also really helpful for people to hear the deeper message behind it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you. I actually wanted to also, I didn't get to say this earlier, but I feel like that dinner party really, for me now looking back, I remember another feature of that dinner party, which is now so wonderful for me to reflect on, because The Inside Out Revolution is such an iconic book. And I meet people all the time who just wax lyrical about it and how it's affected their lives. But at that particular dinner party, I don't know if you even remember this, but you allowed us to sort of be this sort of mini focus group because you got the artwork out for this book that you had just written. You wanted to get feedback to sort of see, well, what do you think of this image? Well, what do you think of that image? And it was The Inside Out Revolution. So what an auspicious moment, a historical moment for us to be a part of.
Well, thank you. I still love the title, and it's been ripped off and copied in about 24 languages. So they didn't all use the same artwork, but a lot of them do.
As I say, it's a wonderful book, and we recommend it for sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Nice to see you guys.
It's so great
nice to see you.
And I think maybe soon there'll be in-person things happening again.
Dun, dun, dun.
But are we going to be allowed to hug? That's the other thing. I think everybody's going to get together. It's going to have a whole new social flavor to it in terms of how we interact with one another. I don't know.
I just don't think elbow bumps are really going to catch on at all.
Yeah, no, it's not really happening for me.
Not in LA anyway. Well, Michael, thank you. Is there anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No, I guess if I was gonna, it would be, relationships really can be just such a core part of having a life. And I don't know that they need to be in the sense of a traditional, one-to-one intimate thing, but certainly, like, if you're like that guy who's like, well, we don't fight all the time and still have sex sometimes. Like it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. It's okay to set the bar higher and not be disappointed. Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. We're so grateful. And we will include your full bio and everything so people know how to get in contact with you. But thanks so much for participating. And please give our love to Nina.
You are very welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you so much for listening to Rewilding Love. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know by subscribing on iTunes, and we would love for you to leave a review there.
iTunes reviews will steer people to this podcast who need help with their relationships.
If you would like to learn more about our work and our online rewilding community, please visit our website, therewilders.org.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week.